When you tell people, look, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, that increases your clout, your credibility, your authority, and it makes your publicity live longer. And it really does help you. Like I'm so blown away by the amount of people who earn media exposure and they don't tell people about it. They just assume everybody saw it. Well, guess what? Even if they did see it, they forgot about it the next day. You need to keep reminding them. Like you leave so much money on the table when you don't share your media exposure. So like, listen, if you're not going to do it out of common courtesy for the person who gave you their platform and gave you their audience for free, then do it for yourself to actually make some money.
You're listening to the Real Business Connections Network. Real Business Connections Network. Powered by Balbert Marketing, LLC. Subscribe now and check us out at realbusinessconnections.com. Enjoy the show.
Welcome everyone to Learn, Speak, Teach, powered by Balbert Marketing, LLC. If you love to learn, be inspired, and succeed, we're here to speak and teach. I'm your host, Ben Albert. I believe if you're not living, you're dying. If you're not growing, you're withering. And if you're not engaged, you can turn this off right now. Because we here at LST are lifelong learners. And listen, I'm not your guru. I'm an ordinary guy on a journey to learn from the experts. My goal is to host each conversation with a beginner's mindset. Learn and let the experts speak and teach their truths. Join us! Oh yeah, and don't forget to subscribe. This episode is brought to you completely free. Get some stake in the game here. My fee for the show only takes a few moments. If you gain value from the episode, personally share with a friend and explain your favorite part. Bonus points. Please leave us a review on Apple, Google Podcasts, or anywhere you listen to the show. All right, let's get started. All right, welcome everyone to Learn, Speak, Teach on the Real Business Connections Network. I am here with Christina Nicholson. Christina, what's up? How are you?
Hi, Ben. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited about this conversation. We're going to talk PR. We're going to talk earned media, podcasting, all the stuff that I love. And wow, I want your insight because I feel like I do some of this stuff just on my own, but I don't really have a professional coaching me. And I think a lot of the listeners are going to see that they do some of this stuff on their own, maybe poorly. And it's nice to have a professional like you coaching us. So quick bio. You're an award-winning journalist with more than a decade of experience anchoring, reporting, writing, blogging, video production, editing, excelling in social media, photography, and live TV. Christina has been featured in Forbes, Fast Company, The Huffington Post, Time, Yahoo, PR Daily. Wow, this is a mouthful. The things you have accomplished, Christina. All Business Experts, CNN, MTVJ in Miami, WPTV in West Palm Beach, News 12 in New York City, and many other media outlets. You are the owner of Media Maven. It's not like the other outdated PR agencies. You're a modern publicity and content creation agency with direct newsroom, publishing, and social media influencer experience. Lastly, you are the host of the Media Maven podcast, Top 1% Worldwide, and you are the owner of Podcast Clout, the #1 podcast list building tour for PR agencies. That's a mouthful, and that's a compliment. Wow. So those are many of your accomplishments and many of the prestige that you have earned, but put all that aside. Who's Christina? Who are you on the weekend? What do you love? What do you value? Tell the audience a little bit about just you as a person.
Yeah. So on the weekend, I'm usually reading a book. I love to read. And I have 3 kids that keep me busy. I have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 2-year-old. So we're always out and about doing something. And then, during the week, it's just working, managing everything that you just mentioned. Mainly the PR agency. Luckily, I've built an amazing team of people who help me with that. My online course, helping people do PR themselves. And that's about it. Yeah.
Yes. And, I forgot you're a TEDx speaker. I actually wrote
did that
down.
too. Yes, I did that too.
The very first line of that TEDx talk, fake news is your fault.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What the heck does that mean? Tell the listener what that means.
I mean, to make the 7-minute TEDx talk a little shorter, basically, when you see something on the internet and you like it or you agree with it, you tend to share it without fact checking first, just because, again, you like it or you agree with it. That's one part of it. The other part of it is engaging with content online that you don't like. By doing that, you are making it live longer and you are making it have more attention. So it's kind of like, I use the example of a Kardashians post. If you go to any post about a Kardashian, head to the comment section and you'll see nothing but hate and very few messages of positivity there. So all the haters are keeping them relevant because whoever posted that is going to say, hey, look at all this engagement this posted. Let's do more of that. So it's just really a behind the scenes of how the media works and how your actions actually determine what gets covered and how it gets covered. Another example is, I worked as a TV reporter and anchor for many years, and people would always say, oh, I don't watch the news. It's too much negativity. It's too much bad stuff. But we could see every day that when we would go from a negative story to a positive story, people would change the channel. So people want to complain about the negative news, but that's what they want to watch too, because their actions speak louder than their words.
100%. And completely nonpartisan statement, but didn't Donald Trump basically win the presidency on bringing in negative news?
He could have. I mean, that's a whole other can of worms.
It is.
He definitely was an entertaining speaker, regardless of whatever side you're on. It's safe to say he was entertaining. And some people took that entertainment one way and others took it another way. But that's another reason for the topic. Fake news is your fault, because around that time when I did the talk, he kind of coined the term fake news and was using it all the time. So it got people's attention, even though the talk was really nothing about him or politics. It was just how people consume the media from like an insider's perspective. We did definitely capitalize on the fact that everybody thinks they're a media expert all of a sudden since he started running and talking about it.
Yes. And most of my listeners, they don't want to polarize. They might understand that negative press is still press, but they don't want to polarize. They want to help. They want to be, their brand to exude positivity and change and helpfulness. How do we gain some of this earned exposure without saying anything so ridiculous that it makes the news because it's just so blasphemy or out of left field? How do I start earning some of that exposure, but still staying aligned with my purpose to help?
Yeah. Well, first you have to notice what is news and what is not news.
Okay.
There's lots of talk shows, there's lots of opinion shows, there's lots of contributors online, there's lots of bloggers, there's podcasts. You know what I mean? Just because you have a podcast, that doesn't mean you're news. So you have to be mindful of who you're reaching out to and why you're reaching out to them, or even if they're reaching out to you. Who's reaching out to you and why are they reaching out to you? So where do you want to be and where do you not want to be? I mean, that makes a big difference. So that's number one. And then number two, if you really want to reach out and you really want to help people, then don't get distracted by, the big names, the big media outlets. Where's your audience? And I always tell people two things. One, start local, start where you live, because you're more newsworthy where you live. So that just increases your chances of coverage. And two, go niche. Like, who is your audience? Don't just say business owners, like business owners in what industry, business owners in what place, business owners in what stage of business. And then find those podcasts, those websites, those blogs, whoever that is reaching that audience, and then reach out to them as well.
You're preaching to the choir, and I wish I had you by my side coaching me this entire time. To give you and any listener that doesn't have the context, this podcast, which is now Learn, Speak, Teach, there's 5 shows on one network. It all started with Rochester Business Connections, Rochester, New York Business Connections, where I was the business owner with the least amount of knowledge in the entire city. But since I had only been in business 2 months, I started a podcast around Rochester local business because it didn't exist. And not only was I the dumbest person in the room, I was the least experienced person in the room. But by connecting with brilliant business leaders, I had an opportunity to basically learn as quick as possible, gain their insight, gain their mentorship, gain their friendship, build a local following. And nowadays, I still have Rochester Business Connections, Christina. You're on Learn, Speak, Teach. But Rochester Business Connections is still going, but I have an opportunity to expand my reach to people like you into larger audiences. But it started super hyper local with a business podcast in a city, very, very niche, but I was the only one doing it. So I freaking got lucky because I didn't have your coaching at the time. What are some other ways that people can hyper niche down and they don't have to start a local business podcast per se? Any other ideas to kind of get started in a local or a niche kind of community project?
Yeah. I mean, I was a guest on podcasts for years before I started my own podcast.
Okay.
And that's where I get a lot more leads. It's from other podcasts instead of my own, because I find that people who listen to my podcast, they already know, like, and trust me. And maybe I'm still nurturing them and warming some people up to work with me. However, when I'm a guest on somebody else's podcast, I'm reaching all of their listeners for the first time. And then if they like what they hear, then they're going to come back and follow me and potentially do business with me. So I would say, don't worry about starting your own podcast, because that's it sounds like a lot of work. You got to record episodes, think of a schedule, produce them, publish them, the whole thing. Instead, find podcasts where your ideal client or customer are listening to, and then pitch to be a guest on those podcasts. And then when you're pitching, the tip here is to make your pitch not just short, sweet, and to the point, but as specific as possible. Because as a podcast host, I can tell you, I get a lot of pitches from people, and most of them are terrible. And that is because they're too promotional, their pitches are too long, and they're too generic. Like, I wish I had $1 every time I got a pitch for somebody talking about how they grew their business and they want to talk about how they did it through marketing, or they want to talk about entrepreneurship. And it's like, I need a pitch that's more specific. So for example, if you want to talk about marketing, talk to me about marketing for women in business to get 3 times more traffic to their website this year. Like, that's something super specific and tangible that people want to know. Instead of talking to me about making money and building your email list through social media, tell me how you will build your email list by 1,000 people only using Pinterest in the next 3 months. So if you're going to pitch a podcast, you want to be super specific like that, because your topic has probably already been discussed, but the way to get it to stand out to that podcast host is to be super specific with those tangible takeaways. Super specific, super unique. And then they'll platform you so you can reach an audience without having to completely build the podcast platform yourself. I love this. I get a lot of pitches, and I'm cutting out all the fluff. It's, hi, I just released a book. I want to promote my book to your audience. It's your job, Ben. Like, you're sitting there waiting for them to email you because you're just dying to promote strangers' books on your podcast. You want to spend your time promoting strangers' books. Yeah, no. I literally had someone actually say, like, I'd love to talk to your audience about my products and services. Yeah, they have no clue. They think it works like that. And yes, don't we all, but it doesn't work like that. And honestly, your audience doesn't want to hear about a stranger's product and service. They don't. They want to hear the content in the book. Like, tell me what's in the book specifically so my audience has something to walk away with. Tell me how your products or services will help me, like, get into the nitty-gritty of that. And then if they want to know more, they'll go and find you. People approach it the wrong way. They approach it very selfishly. I'll tell anyone listening, if you want to get a hold of me,
All you got to do is finish listening to the show and come back with 3 takeaways and you'll have my attention. So anyone listening, write down 3 takeaways, whether or not you're reaching out to us. You will grab our attention quickly if you show that you actually listened. While we're on podcasting and guesting and the value of coming on other people's shows, they'll platform you. That's a big part of what you do at Podcast Clout, right? So let's talk about how the service Podcast Clout offers.
Yeah. So I have my PR agency, and in the agency, we use software that'll get you all of the contact information for anybody in print, broadcast, online. It just makes it super easy to build a media list or a pitch list. But there was nothing easy for podcasts. And I've had the best experience with podcasts, and my clients always love it when they get on podcasts. But if I pick up my phone and go through the apps, there's over 2 million of them. They're not sorted in any way. I don't know which ones are still active. I don't know which ones stopped recording episodes. It's just like a pain. So I said, let me get a software together where it will just give me the top 250 podcasts in every category in the last 90 days. That's all I want to know. And that brought my pool down from 2 million to 20,000. I was like, perfect. That's what I need. So I go into Podcast Clout. You can either search by category, you can search by keyword, or you can niche down and search by both at the same time and build your list. So you know exactly what podcast you want to get on, who to pitch, the best way to pitch them, whether it be email or online form. And I really just created it because it was something I saw a need for in the public relations space. But then I started seeing that a lot of people who would act as their own publicists, a lot of business owners who maybe couldn't hire an agency, but either wanted to pitch podcasts themselves, or they had a VA and they wanted the VA to pitch them, would use it as well. So I wanted to make sure that it was affordable and something that anybody could use, from solopreneur to big PR agency. So that's really how that came about. I needed it. So I had it created, and then I shared it with other people who wanted to build their brands by being guests on podcasts.
I love it. And someone like little old me who's trying to get on 50 podcasts this year, I can go in myself and start creating those interactions using that, tailored custom list of just the best podcasts. Or does Podcast Clout do booking as well, or just offering that service there?
It doesn't do any booking or pitching for you. Like, you will have to pitch yourself. You obviously can hire my agency to do the booking for you. But it does just tell you exactly who's a good fit and the contact information. And you can try it out for free. There is a free trial where you can get your first 10 for free.
And listen, guys, you need to be able to pitch and understand what you offer anyway. So when you come on podcasts, you provide value and people want to listen and learn more, just how I want to learn more about you. So we're not closing, but I wanted to bring it up right now. Tell me a little bit about Media Maven, what kind of services you offer, how people can get in touch and utilize that.
Yeah. So I started my agency because when I was working as a TV reporter and anchor, I was pitched all the time by publicists and business owners who wanted that free media exposure. And 9 times out of 10, their pitches were terrible because they were overly promotional, they were long, they were sending press releases. It was just very obvious that they didn't know what we did in a newsroom all day, every day. So when I was looking for something with a more flexible schedule, I worked at a PR agency for 6 months, and then I got off on my own. And I said, I'm just going to freelance. I'll do some work for other PR agencies on the side. I'll take on my own clients. So I was on Upwork and LinkedIn and taking anybody who would pay me. And then, fast forward 7 years, I have a team of 8, and we help people get exposure in the media without spending money on ads. And then I started getting messages from people who were like, hey, I want this, but I don't have a budget to hire an agency. So then that's how the media mentoring program came to be. So I just created an online course where I was like, okay, this is what I do for my clients, like step by step, total transparency, like it's insane. This is what you need to do for yourself. It comes with a Facebook group where I will answer any question. I post in there sometimes multiple times a day of media opportunities that my colleagues are working on. Wow. So people in the course get like first dibs on, emailing a writer because I know that they're looking for a source in XYZ. So that's kind of how that came about. So we really do it yourself, do it with us, or totally done for you.
I'm going to do two things. I'm going to obviously add that to the show notes, but I'm also going to add that to an open tab as soon as we're done recording, because this sounds like something that I could tremendously benefit from. Wow, I love it. Talking about how press releases don't work, and maybe they used to. I can't even recall why I wrote this down. I think it was another podcast you did, but I wrote down press release Ted Bundy.
Oh, okay. I understand what you're talking about.
Do you know why I wrote that down? Because I can't remember.
Because I was watching a documentary about Ted Bundy, which he was killing people in the 70s and 80s. And they interviewed a police officer, and the police officer said he was getting the word out through press releases. So I was like, okay, this is what they were doing in the 70s and 80s. The fact that people still think this is relevant today in 2022, like you are wrong. You need to like catch up here, because if it worked well in the 80s and 90s, look at how much the media has changed since then. Like they were faxing these press releases to each other. So like step up your game, get with the times. I have a master class that I teach. You would really like it, Ben. You can find it at earnmedianow.com. And I walk through the 5 steps to get media coverage. And my first step, here's a little preview, is stop writing press releases. And then I go on to tell you what to do instead. But like, that's good news for people, because people worry about the format and what to put in it. And they're long and they're boring, and nobody wants that stuff anymore. The only time we ever write a press release for clients is if somebody requests one, which most of the time the person making that request is the client, just because that's the way things have always happened. And that's how they think it works. So, yeah, that's the Ted Bundy reference.
So we're going to toss the press releases in the garbage. We'll start a fire with them. We don't need them.
Right.
Without giving out the entire course, because obviously you can't give out the whole course in a podcast.
I'm an overshare. I'll give out whatever you want. What's the next question?
Just a little piece for my niece. So if I'm trying to gain some more earned media without running ads and basically paying to play, or trying to join, I don't know, take everyone off golfing, because I think that'll work for me. How do I start earning this media? So I could, in theory, start a podcast. That's something Ben did. I could go and I could be on more podcasts, get better at owning my message, get better at, chatting and spreading the word. But what else? What other channels do the influencers or the entrepreneurs you work with utilize to actually get out there and actually get noticed in their communities?
Yeah. Well, another thing that I mentioned both in the course and in my masterclass is jumping on what is already happening. So some people call this newsjacking. I actually didn't know that there was a term for it when I worked in news. I learned that when I got out and got into PR. But I can give you a story of how specifically this happened when I was in news. It was around the time that Corey Monteith, the actor from Glee, overdosed on heroin and died. And I don't know if this doctor called us or if we found him or what the situation was. I just know that I was working in Miami, Florida, and I did a story on how heroin was, the drug of the 80s, and now it's making a comeback and it's more common. And we would not have done that story if a celebrity did not die of heroin. And this local doctor got coverage for free talking about his specialty in front of millions of people because we localized a national story. Real estate agents can do this. There's always national real estate news. How does that relate to where you live locally? Somebody's covering it. So if you're a real estate agent, you need to jump on it. Even if you have a product or a service that is good for mothers, around Mother's Day, you're going to get a lot of coverage. This is how I got Amy Porterfield on CNN. I pitched her around Mother's Day, and the original pitch was to something, it was supposed to be geared towards graduates. Like, you don't have to go to college. You can take an online course because that happens, around May, Mother's Day. And they said, instead of that, let's talk about how moms can make money from home with online courses. So we did that. I actually give that exact pitch away on my masterclass. You can see exactly what I sent to CNN. So yeah, that's one good reason to come to the masterclass, to get that pitch. I told you, Ben, I don't hold anything back. I share it all. But that's another example. Just look at what's happening either nationally in the news, or look at the calendar and see what's relevant now and what people are talking about, and how can you relate? Because not only is that already being covered, but you're not going in and being too overly promotional. You're just trying to help them tell the story that they were probably going to tell anyway.
You're inserting yourself into the story as an expert, someone who understands this. Now, what if that fails? And I have a gist of the answer to this, but what if it fails? They don't bring you on as, a resident expert, so that falls flat. I can go tell the story myself anyways, right?
You totally can do it yourself. And then, like you have your website, you have your social media. The only problem with that is you don't get credibility or authority. You don't get that third-party endorsement, and you're still only reaching your audience. So if that happens, just do it yourself and then do it again. Like, pitch a new idea, because your pitch, when you send it to the media, it should be relevant for about 2 to 3 weeks. And then after that, it should expire. Because if it's not expiring, then that means it's not newsworthy, because there's no reason to do it now. Like, you have to give the media a reason to do your story now. There has to have a sense of urgency, or else it's not newsworthy. So if it's not being covered by the media, then 100% do it yourself and put it out there. But then look at what's trending, look at the calendar, and do it again. It really is. And that's probably the toughest part. Just as a publicist and an agency owner, you're always going back to the drawing board to say, okay, this worked, this didn't work. What are we going to do next time? You're always looking for new story ideas.
So you have the story idea, it's going to expire. So you got to get a pitch together that's relevant to them and their audience quickly. Do I call them? Does it matter what channel I use? Should I be calling? Should I be emailing? Should I be connecting on LinkedIn? What channels should I be utilizing?
I wouldn't call them, just because people don't like to get phone calls. I mean, I got a voicemail the other day from somebody who was pitching themselves to be on my podcast. It was a publicist pitching somebody to be on my podcast. And I'm like, why are you calling me? Email is always best. And I also like Twitter. I also like social media. I say Twitter specifically because that's where most members of the media hang out.
Got it.
If your person is active on LinkedIn, then use LinkedIn. You obviously want to go to where your people are active, the people you're pitching, but email is best. And then I always use the boomerang extension in Gmail to remind myself to follow up. So I will follow up on those emails about once a week for 3 weeks total. And if it's not a yes by then, I'm going to assume it's a no. And the reason for the follow-up is because we all have a million emails in our inbox. So it could be missed. Person could be busy. Even if they did see it, they may need a reminder, or maybe it wasn't relevant a week ago. And then maybe it's relevant now because something happened in that person's life that made it relevant, or something happened in the news cycle that made it relevant. So I usually email, and then I also try to connect on social media. You should just always be connecting, especially on Twitter or LinkedIn. Like, if you want to really build a relationship with a writer in your niche, you should follow them. You should read what they're writing. You should be retweeting and commenting. And not only because you should know this stuff anyway, but also because your name will stand out to them in their inbox if you're making an effort to build a relationship with them on social media.
That's really valuable. Build the relationship. That almost answers the question I was going to ask. And it's, everybody's they're going to take notes. They're going to do this. They're going to get that, earned media exposure, and then they're going to crush it. Now what? Now, obviously, you don't want to be that crazy person that's emails 3 times a week for 3 years straight. Hey, bring me back. Hey, bring me back. Hey, bring me back. I feel like one of the answers is start building a relationship and foster that relationship. But yeah, my question is, once I gain that media exposure, and assuming I crush it, which I will, what do I do next? Do I lay off a little bit? What would you do?
The best way to get invited back is to share it on social media and tag everybody who was involved in getting you there. I can honestly say one of the biggest mistakes people make is after they earn exposure, they do nothing. Like they think, oh, I'm in Forbes, everybody's going to see it, and now I'm going to be famous. No, there are like 2,000 people who are in Forbes every day. And guess what? The next day, everybody has forgotten. So you want to do a few things. You want to share it on social media everywhere. Tag the outlet, tag the journalist, the writer, the booker, the podcast host, whoever. You want to tag them because not only does this show them you're sharing it, but that tells them, oh, this person's going to share my stuff after I interview them. I'm going to bring that person back on. And it's good for you. You have to do PR on your PR. So like people will see, oh, this person's here. They must be legit in their business. I wrote for Inc. magazine for 2 years. I never got a client from saying, hey, I found this article in Inc. magazine. You wrote it. I want to work with you. I got my clients by following me on LinkedIn and me posting the article on LinkedIn and them saying, oh, you write for Inc. How'd you do that? I want to get an Inc. Like that's how it happens. So you have to be sharing it on social media. There are so many other things that you can do after you earn coverage. I did a podcast episode, 35 things to do after you earn coverage to turn publicity into profit. That's just one, but I would say that's probably the most important one because I have had clients who have lost coverage opportunities because they don't do this. I remember specifically, I had a restaurant here in South Florida. The main newspaper was going to cover them for a second or third time. And the writer said, we're going to go cover this other restaurant because when we cover them, they share it on social media. Your client didn't share it on social media, so we're not going to cover them anymore.
This is so valuable. I know as a host, I've gotten to a point where it used to just be I'd just bring anybody on, but I make sure that I stalk someone on social media a little bit to see if they're a collaborator or if they're a taker. You can tell because if they have a massive list of things they've done, but they're not sharing about that stuff online or they're not interacting, they might come on my podcast and just take. So really everything you're saying to me is give, give, give. Kind of ask yourself the question, what's in it for them? How can I elevate them? How can I help them? And then in turn, they want to help you back as well, right?
Yeah. And it's not even like, you should do it for yourself too. Like, it's not just give, 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 but like when you tell people, look, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, that increases your clout, your credibility, your authority, and it makes your publicity live longer. And it really does help you. Like I'm so blown away by the amount of people who earn media exposure and they don't tell people about it. They just assume everybody saw it. Well, guess what? Even if they did see it, they forgot about it the next day. You need to keep reminding them. Like you leave so much money on the table when you don't share your media exposure. So like, listen, if you're not going to do it out of common courtesy for the person who gave you their platform and gave you their audience for free, then do it for yourself to actually make some money.
Let's talk more about this because I think I did an okay job, but probably kind of bad. And most people are failing here, right? So when I had my 1-year anniversary, we did a ribbon cutting. So first thing I did is hire a photographer. And I think I did a good job promoting it. But let's not talk about me. Let's just talk about that scenario. So there's a ribbon cutting, there's an anniversary, there's a big event. How can I take that event and repurpose and share it in as many ways as possible? How would you dissect that one moment in time and get the most out of that moment in time? What would you do?
I think leading up to the event, I would definitely do giveaways. Everybody loves a giveaway.
Okay.
But you want to make it relevant to whatever your business is. You know, like everybody would love an iPad giveaway or a TV giveaway, but then you're going to draw the attention of people who would never use your product or service. So like, for example, down here in South Florida, the med spas, like they'll have grand openings and they'll give away Botox and they'll give away lip filler. Like that's relative to what they do. So obviously the people showing up are going to be their ideal customers and clients. So that's one thing to do. You want to just really get the most attention as you can for the event because that, like, once it's done, it's done. So to continue the coverage, especially if it's like a brick and mortar store where you're having an event, I really like working with local influencers because they're the ones who are going to help you spread the word if they have the right audience. You want to make sure they have a local audience. Like, don't look at followers or any of that. That doesn't matter. You want to make sure that they have the right audience. And if you don't have a budget to pay them, you could work on trade, like an advertisement. People like to be paid though, because you can't pay bills on trade. So just keep that in mind. So I really like that. And then also like be the expert in your industry, like be the expert in your industry where you are, because that way you're always getting coverage. So you should always be getting coverage for two things. One is you and your personal brand, regardless of whether you have a product or a service, a brick and mortar or an online business. Like the person behind the brand needs to be a spokesperson about that industry. Number two is the service or the product. Now, it gets a little difficult to promote a service or a product because, again, we don't want to be too promotional, but there are times when you can be, like National Pie Day, right? That's March 14th. I've gotten restaurants coverage on National Pie Day because they make pizza pies or they make pies. So again, that's when you go back to how can I enterprise this story? How can I make this newsworthy? And it's really, again, just wash, rinse, and repeat with that after your opening. But always having an event and getting the local community involved is really good. One of my clients is Midas. Depending on where you are in the country, it's Midas,
Tires,
Kingdom,
oil,
NTB. Yeah. Like they're all under the same, they all have, they're owned by the same company. And we earned one of the store owners, one of the franchisees, a lot of coverage recently because he had a vaccination event. So like if you came to his store and you got vaccinated, you would get a free oil change. So like, not only does that bring people into his location, but it was a newsworthy story because there was lots of coverage about the vaccine. So that's an example of like, you don't just have to have a grand opening event or a ribbon cutting. Like what else can you do? What nonprofits can you team up with in your area? What other nearby businesses can you team up with in your area? One thing that I'm doing is I'm going to host a book club at a local hotel in West Palm Beach. So I am going to be promoting this book club on my social media and bring people to this hotel. They're charging $35 a ticket. So the hotel's going to make money. People are going to come into the hotel. They're going to see the restaurant, this, that, and the other. So there's all kinds of events and things that you can do if you have a local brick and mortar business. And you can do similar things online too, but those examples are more specifically for local brick and mortar businesses.
These are incredible examples. And even if you're not the business owner, guys, if you are part of the ambassadorship team and you're coming and you're bringing these ideas to your leadership team, you're going to be in the leadership team pretty darn quickly. So this is something we can all utilize, whether or not we own our own business or not. Wow, I wish I had another 45 to an hour with you. We'll do a part two, but for now, I'm going to go to the rapid fire round.
Okay.
Short, sweet, either or, fill in the blank questions. Points don't matter. Completely subjective to you. And I like to start with coffee or tea.
Neither.
Just water?
Water and Coke and chocolate milk.
And chocolate milk. Love it. Cats or dogs or fill in the blank?
Neither.
If
I had to pick dogs, but I'm not a big animal person. I'm not a serial killer. Like everybody says that. Like I'm just not like, I just don't want one in my home.
What are some of your like guilty pleasures? Weekend, just gonna chill, putting the work aside. Yes. What do you love to do?
Lay in bed, read, and watch TV. Like I am all about being lazy. I love a massage. I am not one to shy away from self-care. That's my self-care.
Self-care is huge. What are some of these books you're reading? Any recommendations or anything current?
I love a psychological thriller with some murder. Those are fun for me. I don't know if I'm burnt out on business books, but the business book has to be so super specific or very unique because I'm just tired of reading the same thing over and over again. I really liked Atomic Habits by James Clear. I also really liked Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. That one was fabulous. And Profit First. So for nonfiction, I like those. Those are all, I think, very unique and very targeted. And then nonfiction, I like psychological thrillers, murder mysteries, some romance if it's funny, like I like the funny books too.
I love it. Atomic Habits is on my Kindle right now. In addition to that, 2 people today have recommended it. So I'm about to read it. It sounds like everyone else should read it as well. We'll do one more question. So $1,000 or less, preferably as cheap as possible. So, small business owner, entrepreneur, not a massive corporate budget. They want earned media, but they're also willing to invest a little bit. Any tools or systems, or if I were to take my first 100 or first 1,000, where should I invest that money, or should I just not invest it at all?
You should invest it in my media mentoring program because you get lifetime access in the Facebook group. People can't do business with you if they don't know about you, and this gets people to know about you.
There you go. How do people invest in that?
If you want to watch the masterclass first, which I do suggest people watch the masterclass first, just to make sure you like me, you like my teaching style, you like what I'm saying, you can check that out at earnmedianow.com. And if you watch that and you attend that masterclass and then you want to go into the course after that, you do get a discount and you do get some cool bonuses. So I do like to send people to that first, just to ensure it's a good fit. But yeah, that's where I would send people, is to earnmedianow.com. And then they could also, listen to me on my podcast at Become a Media Maven, and then on social media at Christina all day.
Awesome. That's wow, more than enough places to hang out with you. And if someone reaches out, use the tips in this podcast in your outreach. No one's going to guarantee that Christina can or will respond. I'm sure you'll do your best, but if
I'm pretty good at it.
But if people reach out with a press release, they're probably not going to get a response, right?
Yeah, I can't reply to everything. I get hundreds of emails a day because like I said, I'm a reporter for a nonprofit.
Right.
I get hundreds of emails a day from publicists who clearly have no clue what they're doing because I only cover news on the island of Palm Beach, and they send me the most ridiculous stuff. So, don't pitch me like that. I really won't get back to you because I don't even open those.
Let's close. There's been a million actionable tips already, so not that we missed any. There's been so many, but let's close with one actionable to do. Like, let's write this down and to do it today. The moment we park, the moment we get out of the gym, the moment we turn this podcast off, let's go do this. Give us one action step to gain some momentum and start learning a little bit more about this and gaining that momentum.
I would say if you're going to do one thing, if you're going to take one thing from here after listening to this, I just want people to believe that they are ready to earn exposure. I get so frustrated with people when they make excuses like, oh, I'm not big enough. I'm not making enough money. I'm not ready. They make so many excuses on why they can't pop into their local TV station and do an interview or get on a podcast. Like, they talk it up in their mind like it's this big thing that they're not ready for. If you are ready for a new customer or client, then you are ready for media coverage. And the fact that people think they need all of this attention, it's like putting the cart before the horse. You need the attention to get big. You need the attention to be busy. And in my masterclass, I give so many examples of people who were not big, this is my side hustle, I'm not making any money, and I got them on the Today Show. There are idiots, your competition and idiots earning major media exposure just because they're putting themselves out there. You're better than that. So you need to put yourself out there. So if you take away anything from this, believe that you are ready for this and you can do it.
Believe you're ready. Write it down. Am I an idiot? And if the answer is no, you deserve this, right? You deserve the exposure. Well, thank you, Christina. This has been a ton of fun. It's been therapeutic and a learning experience for me. And I know for a fact the listeners feel the same way. So I appreciate you taking the time and coming on the show. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me, Ben. I appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Thanks again for listening to Learn, Speak, Teach, powered by Balbert Marketing, LLC. You need to go subscribe if you haven't yet. This show is completely free. If you gain value from the episode, personally share with a friend and explain your favorite part. Leave us a review on Apple, Google Podcasts, or anywhere you listen to the show. All right. Thanks once more for listening to LST. I am so grateful. Talk to you soon.